So we are Charlie Gray and Joseph Peach, and we are a fiddle and piano duo from the Scottish Highlands. The podcast came around quite naturally, actually, in many ways, because recordings always felt very natural for me and Joseph.
Yeah, as has collaborating, I suppose, and so trying to do something in which you're regularly making like a variety of kind of new music with a variety of different folk, and then, releasing that in a more direct way. Yeah, that felt like something really interesting to explore.
What do people see on stage? They see, the finished product. And for me, that was a really important part of it, was to kind of delve into that world and open it up and kind of look like, how is the guitarist doing what he's doing? How is, all these things, how do you even write a piece of music? So it's hopefully going to be an interesting thing for people to tune into.
I think we came to this residency week with a kind of, the goal was very much to have recorded a kind of pilot episode. I think we were aware coming down that there was going to be a large amount of experimentation and kind of delving into rabbit holes and things required, but also, that goal was so fixed, I think kept us pretty focused in terms of not getting too stuck in one place and, continually moving forwards and all that sort of thing.
Especially as we've only had the week here to explore. I think if we were here for 2 weeks, it would have been a very different story. But And I've found the times that we've produced some of our best music has just been like, you have to get this thing finished by X amount of time.
I think when we were talking to Owen about coming here to do the week and things, we didn't really set any parameters as far as what sort of music we would make together. In the podcasts about music that I've been able to find is that there's not many where, actually making something and kind of taking the listener from start to finish of that process, in this case it's music, is really, there doesn't seem to be much along those lines.
Yeah, let's try that. Okay, right, I'm just going to start recording.
Owen was basically our guinea pig for how we approach that and how we do that. Even though the kind of topics of conversation are all the same, talking in a way that's going to be, suitable for audiences to listen to, and audiences who hopefully aren't musicians. I think it would be really nice if this could be a kind of piece of audio that anyone could listen to and take something from, and be quite accessible in that way. There was a lot of stuff kind of in the diary for this year before everything fell apart and the world went mental, but this was, this week here was always going to be one of my highlights of the whole year. So I'm really delighted that we've been able to come down and to do it. And so in a way, it's really great that that's been the first thing back, since we've been able to start working again at all. It's great that that's into a completely new thing. When we go about making this podcast series in full, the idea is that we're going to have a kind of one-day writing and recording session with a collaborator in my studio in Glasgow. And I think part of our reasoning for attempting this podcast in the first place is that, there's so much interesting conversation that happens in a rehearsal room. Just when you're writing, when it's just the two of us writing together, or if we're working collaboratively in the various kind of ways that we do. So the idea is that we'll really try and get into that and make space to properly, explore ideas about how we're influenced and how we go about making music and all those sort of things.
Not just being constrained to traditional Scottish music in that box. It's as much as I love that part of my life, I don't think it's ever going to totally do it for me creatively.
Yeah, and I think we've tried to pick a guest list which allows us to go more into other worlds, and to bring what we do to, which is something which would be more like jazz or more electronica. There's a couple of folk who live very much in the classical world and things like that, and a couple of, indie singer-songwriters too.
Another beautiful thing about this particular duo is, the fiddle and the piano, they are two instruments that belong in many different genres, and it's something I want to explore a bit more of, because I've always had these different genres that I've kind of flipped between, and you're the same.
Yeah.
And I'd really like to collaborate with people and see what we can make.
the process of making this podcast has shown that all of the different places that conversation can take you, and I think I've become more aware of how we'll need to be kind of ready for that and ready for how that might take the music to different places than we maybe necessarily expect as well.
What can we do in 6 hours? Like, how do we approach that? And I think we have had a much clearer idea of that over the course of this week.
You know, this is about us being creative and creating something which is more than just notes as the product. You know what I mean? It's all of the conversation that we have is part of that, and I think that's new for us both. I think, but that's quite an exciting thing.